62% of owned dogs in the United States are spayed or neutered. If 35 owned dogs are randomly selected, we're going to find the probability that, and then we have 4 parts here. The first part is we're going to find the probability that exactly 23 of them are spayed or neutered. So we're going to find the probability that our random variable x is 23, exactly 23. So we're going to have to use Binomial PDF since we're trying to find the probability of one value for x. I am going to abbreviate BP for Binomial PDF so I don't have to write all that out. So we're going to do Binomial PDF. We're going to put in our number of trials, which is 35. We're going to put in our probability, which is 0.62. And then we're going to put in our value for x, which is 23. When you do that, you should get the value 0.127. Now, for the next part, it says at most 20 of them are spayed or neutered. So at most means we want 20 to be the highest value. So I've got this number line down here, and I know a lot of you don't like writing things out and you want to do it the quickest way possible, but sometimes writing it out is going to prevent you from making a mistake. I highly recommend, until you get good at this, that you actually write out the number line and visualize what values you're looking at. And this will really help you to make sure you're putting in the right value for x. If I want at most 20, that means I want 0 all the way up to 20, including 20. And as you know, our binomial PDF function on the calculator, when you put in for the accumulated binomial function, for the binomial CDF, when you put in your value of x, that calculates all the values from 0, all the probabilities that x is 0, all the way up to that value you put in for x. So when we look for the probability that x is less than or equal to 20, we're going to do binomial CDF. So I'm going to put a C here for CDF. We're going to put in that the number of trials is 35, of course. Our probability is 0.62. But with our accumulated value for the binomial CDF, whatever that value you put in for x, it's 0 and all the way up to that value, including that value. So in this case, we want 0 all the way up to 20. So I'm going to put in x is 20. And so when you put that in the calculator, you should get 0.3341. Okay, now the next one, let me erase my number line here. The next one says at least 19 of them are spayed or neutered. So 19 in this case is going to be the lowest value. We want 19 and up. So I'm going to include 19, and it's going to be 19 and up. So here's the part where you have to subtract off what you don't want. So we don't want, I'll highlight this in a different color, we don't want 18 down to 0. So from 0 to 18 is what we don't want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the probability that x is greater than or equal to 19 by finding the binomial CDF using x is 18 and subtracting it from 1, because I know the total of all of these values, all of these probabilities, the probability that x is 0, the probability that x is 1, the probability that x is 2, etc. All of these probabilities added up should give me 1 or 100%. So if I take 1 and subtract off what we don't want, that's going to give us what's left, which is 19 and above. So I'm going to take 1 minus the binomial CDF of 35 for our trials, and then 0.62 is our probability. And then I'm going to put in 18 because I want to subtract off 18 and below. When you do that, you are going to get 0.8669. Okay, let's look at the last part. Okay, I'm going to highlight in green what we want, and then I'm going to highlight in pink what we don't want so that we know what we need to subtract off. This one says we want everything between 17 and 23, including 17 and 23. So we want 17 all the way up to 23, including 23. So all of these values is what we want to include. Okay, now I don't want everything else. So I don't want 0 through 16. And I don't want 24 up to 35. So there's 2 ways that you can do this, and it might be a good idea for you to try it both ways while you're getting familiar with this, and that way you can kind of convince yourself this is true and get a hang of what all of this means. The long way to do it, but it's easier to understand, if you just find the PDF of 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23 separately. So you find the binomial PDF of 17, the binomial PDF of 18, etc., all the way up to 23. And you find each of those values, and then you add them up. And that will give you everything in the green. It takes a longer time, and you want to make sure that if you do it that way, you don't round until the end. You keep all of those digits. But it will give you the accumulated value of everything in here from 17 to 23. The other way to do it, which is the easier way, but I find that students find it a little bit more confusing, is I know that if I take the binomial CDF of everything up to 23, so I'm doing everything up to 23. So I'm going to put in my number of trials. I'm going to put in my probability. And then I'm going to put in that I want everything up to 23, including 23. Then I'll just subtract off what I don't want, and what I'm left with is the green. I don't want 0 through 16. So I'm going to subtract off my binomial CDF, and I'm going to put in my trial is 35, my probability is 62, and I want to subtract off everything up to 16. Now, a lot of times where students make the mistake is they subtract off up to 17, which throws them off because you don't want to subtract off the 17. You want to keep the 17. The 17 is one of the values that we want. So we want to subtract off 16 and below. So that's why this number here is 16. Now, if it didn't say we were including 17 and we were just doing 18 through 23, then we would take off the 17. But whatever value you want to include, you want to make sure that you do not subtract it off. You want to keep 17, so don't include 17 here. And again, the other way that you can do it is just find each of these individually with the PDF and then add them up. That way it's a little bit longer, but you'll make sure that you get the right answer. So there's 2 ways you can do it. And you can choose which way. I would suggest the first couple times you do this that you practice it both ways. And then I really think that that's going to help you see the bigger picture here. So when you put that in on the calculator, our final answer should be 0.6947. And don't forget, do not round until the very end.